Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and that's Job 38, 4 and 5, by the way. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Thinking Well Podcast. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Tom.
What's going on, Tom?
Nothing, Kyle.
Nothing at all?
Well, I mean, got home from work and my grandson was at the house, so that's always a good time.
Yeah, man.
Pretty cool.
Saw some
I'm so old.
some pictures on Facebook. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times, man. Yeah, it's I worked from home today, so it's pretty solid.
Nice.
Yeah, that's always a good day. It's just a way better day. I don't have
yeah.
to spend an hour in the car going over to North Dallas. Always a good day.
Yuck.
But we are not alone, ladies and gentlemen. We have a third chair today. It is him, Andrew Coates, one of our deacons here at Lake Worth Baptist Church. How's it going, brother?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Did you work today?
I had a short day, and
nice.
I had lunch with my daughter.
Cool.
And then I did some yard work.
Ew
is right, but it's got to be done. But yeah.
I recently decided I need to do my own yard work again too. So
Yeah, be a
that's
man.
gross.
Yeah,
It is the worst.
Yeah.
But
I used to have a company come out, and then they just ghosted me, like just disappeared off the face of the planet. I'm like, I guess I got to buy a mower now.
So horrible.
But it is what it is. Well, let's jump into it, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So it's been a while since we had more of like a current event kind of episode. Probably been a long while. There was an event that happened in Alabama back in February, and I apologize that we're now just getting to it, but revolves around IVF in a court ruling. We wanted to explore a little bit, or maybe inform our listeners about what exactly happened. We're going to ask some pretty deep questions, some moral questions. I wouldn't say gray areas, but there's definitely some stuff where it's going to be hard to kind of come to a conclusion here. It's going to be hard to find an answer.
yeah.
But we're going to try to do that. We're going to try to, open up this book and show you kind of what it says about life and things of that matter. But so let's go back. Let's go back to February. I believe it was 6th.
16th.
16th.
Yeah. So
Close.
February 16th. Well, the story behind it, right? So in December of 2020, a patient in an Alabama hospital, a mental patient, wandered into the fertility clinic portion of that area through an unsecured doorway. The patient entered the cryogenic nursery, which just in itself sounds wrong. But
Sounds like Jurassic Park.
We'll get to that, right?
Yeah, I think I saw that movie.
Park,
Didn't turn out well.
Yeah. Life finds a way.
And removed several containers of embryos. And the sub-zero temperatures, right, at which the embryos are stored, burned the patient's hands, and the patient dropped them, killing the embryos. So, I mean, several of the parents filed a wrongful death suit against the hospital. And we were kind of talking a little bit before, Kyle, you had pointed out that a trial court at first overruled it.
Right. Yeah, they ruled in the favor of the clinic or of the defendant.
Yep.
That it was not wrongful death. After that, the parents appealed it.
Right.
To the Alabama Supreme Court.
Right.
And they recently have come down with a decision overturning that, kind of going in the opposite direction, stating that it is indeed wrongful death. I happen to agree. So I'm glad to see that justice was done. But yeah, no, we wanted to kind of dive into that. And there's more stuff around it, but
yeah, it was a huge ruling though, right? Like, this is the state of Alabama saying that, life begins at conception.
Right.
So, I mean, without getting into the nitty gritty of how IVF works, because I'll be the first person to admit I had to look it up when I first heard about this. Eggs are harvested, right? And then they are injected with the sperm cell, and conception happens, right?
Right.
And then they freeze them within 3 days of that happening. They're verifying that the embryo is viable, that it's going to last, and then they freeze them. So as Christians, and we talked about this in our last episode when we were talking about abortion, like as Christians, we believe that life begins at conception. So the state of Alabama taking a stand on this, and I love one of the things that one of the judges quoted. The justice cites, in summary, the theologically based view of the sanctity of life adopted by the people of Alabama encompasses the following. Number one, God made every person in his image. So immediately the Supreme Court of Alabama is acknowledging that a person exists at conception and that we're all made in God's image. And each person therefore has a value that far exceeds the ability of human beings to calculate. So, I mean, they're saying these embryos are worth as much as any human life, and that human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God who views the destruction of his image as an affront to himself. And then he says that that section of Alabama state law recognizes that this is true of unborn human life no less than it is of all other human life, that even before birth, all human beings bear the image of God, and their lives cannot be destroyed without affecting his glory.
Amen.
Like, okay.
Yeah, and that is the highest court in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, praise God. That's awesome.
Now, having said all that, huge victory for, I mean, those parents that were robbed of those potential children being born, right? Because, I mean, they were still children, but they will now never be born, obviously, because they perished. They were killed. But, man, all kinds of things started happening in my brain when I heard about this, right? I looked at Crystal when I first read about it, and I was like, hey, you gotta let me tell you about this. And so I told her about like the situation and the ruling and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, my mind is blown right now. Like, that means like every embryo ever created through IVF is a soul, right? Mm-hmm. And then I looked at her and I asked her, I'm like, so what does that mean? Like, the soul is there, and like then they're frozen. So like, is their soul just hanging out in limbo indefinitely, like, or until Christ returns, right? So yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of what's driven us towards this conversation, because we kind of started talking about it, and then we got we roped Andrew into talking about it. Andrew, one of his job is to assist in a lot of baby deliveries. So he's literally in the thick of it all the time.
It's true.
And I mean, Andrew's there for the good outcomes and the bad outcomes sometimes, right?
Yeah.
He gets to see, I don't know that he gets to see, but he's there to see both sides of it.
I mean, I've helped deliver anencephalic babies, no brains.
Right.
24-week babies that fit in the palm of my hand. I mean, just assisted with the delivery, not
right.
Me, but still, yeah, it's pretty wild.
So, I mean, I started looking into this quite a bit, and we've kind of been like floating articles and stuff like that around. I've never heard this talked about before. Like, so typically, right, what happens is a couple will go in and they're having issues, conceiving, and so they through everything that they try, or they get to the point of IVF if that's something that they come to, and so they'll harvest a whole bunch of eggs, and then they'll fertilize a whole bunch of eggs. One of the articles that we were reading said that the average was anywhere from 10 to 60. But they'll only use one. And then if that one takes, right, if it's successful, then they have that child. If it does not take, it's treated the same as a miscarriage would be treated. And then they try again, right? And I think for me, like, I understand the miscarriage portion of it, right? Like, obviously a tragedy anytime something like that happens. But when you start reading more and more into it, at some point, some of these embryos are destroyed. Well, based on what we believe, we can't just say that they're destroyed. I mean, to me, these embryos are murdered. They are robbed of and obviously the state of Alabama agrees with me. They're robbed of the life that they possess. So I don't know.
What I think is so significant with this Alabama ruling is that it's never really been sussed out before or really been thought about on this level. It's always just been, well, this is the process. This is how we have found a way to treat infertility, if you will. And, it's a huge scientific breakthrough. And we get so excited about the scientific breakthrough, we don't really consider all of the long-term consequences.
Right. Well, I can't imagine that when they first started doing IVF, that the thought process behind it was that women and couples would just consistently keep making more than they were going to use, right? The logic behind it is, instead of having to pay for the same harvesting over and over again, get as many as you can on the first go, and they'll analyze the eggs and decide which ones are going to be the most viable, and then they'll dispose of those, which at that point, those are just cells, right? Like, I'm willing to say that, until the egg is fertilized, those are just cells that they're disposing of. I don't have a problem with that. But then if they're fertilizing 20 of those, and they only ever use one, and the rest remain in cryo storage.
Cryo sleep.
They're 50 years, 20 years?
I mean, I've read that the oldest frozen embryo was 14 years to date that they had thawed and used successfully.
So they can be used successfully over a period of time, but at some point.
But how long do they keep them without using them?
Right.
I think when you really dissect this down to, its foundation, it's really, it comes down to kind of a similar argument where you have with a lot of people who are, pro-choice or pro-abortion, where they don't consider the act of fertilization where life begins. So you have a lot of individuals who they never think twice about it, right? They'll go in and they'll say, hey, we're going to do 30, and hopefully one of them takes. Great. All right, you got 29 extras. We don't care because we have one that worked, whatever. Morally to them, it doesn't have any significance, right? I think that my prayer is that, when we have rulings that come down like this from Alabama, that it kind of sparks other conversation, and that this kind of spreads to maybe other parts of the Deep South, and then maybe over to kind of where we are, or some of the Gulf states. But you have to have an account for it. I mean, you have to side one way or the other, right? And if especially as Christians, right, if we're going to say, hey, absolutely, life starts at fertilization, which means that is a human being created in the image of God, and that person has a soul attached to them at the moment of conception. That's what we know. That's an absolute certainty, right? If you believe that, and as a Christian, I would say you should believe that. Okay, well, I mean, whether it's they're frozen or if they're in the womb for 9 months, they still has a soul to it, right? And whether it's a miscarriage or something else happens and it's destroyed, it's wrong either way. It's not the way God intended this to work.
That's nature happening, right? Like if it's a miscarriage, that's nature happening, and God acknowledges that that's going to happen, right? And God sees that just as big a tragedy as the family affected by it.
So the difference is this, right? The difference is in the natural course of what's natural for humanity.
Yeah,
miscarriages happen,
right?
Throughout every stage of pregnancy. What is unnatural, what is against the natural processes of humanity and what God intended is abortion, but also mishandling and destroying of fertilized embryos. It's the same thing.
Yeah. What I was going to say was we keep miscarriage in like 10 to 20%, and it's a verifiable NIH fact of known pregnancies end in miscarriage. Very likely that it's very higher percentage because of they're just not caught yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I think we all need to be careful as three dudes who all have their own children, and we're not here to step on anybody's toes or we're just here to have a conversation and kind of I don't know. I haven't gone through it myself, but I don't want someone to get hurt that we've.
No, and I definitely don't want to say that like, IVF is wrong, right? And I don't want to say that couples that are struggling with infertility shouldn't go, down that road. I think a lot of the articles and a lot of those things that I've ingested on this subject are really just pointing to awareness, right? Like, how are we looking at it? How are we thinking about it? Are we thinking about it correctly as Christians?
Right.
And if we can think about it correctly, it's like that verse that we read at the beginning, right? Where God said, were you there?
Right.
When I started making things, were you there when I said what was what?
Right.
Were you the one that measured out everything and the spaces of the universe and said that, yep, the sun is far enough away from the earth, that's perfect.
Right.
And if we weren't there and we're not the ones that get to decide how that worked, right, then we also have to take his word for when life begins.
And so I think this is where I was headed with this point was a spontaneous abortion, again, is out of our control.
Right.
For whatever reasons it happened. But when we assume part of God's responsibility, if you will, and we intervene and we inject, God's made it understandable through science that we understand the fertilization process and we can hack it, for lack of a better term. I mean, I'm responsible for my children now that they are, their ages and, what kind of adult they become. If we are assuming this responsibility, we're now responsible for those children, I feel like.
That's a good point.
And that we need to be, I mean, again, this is my line of work. I heard the other day of a couple who had gone through infertility treatments, and then I didn't get the whole story, but I know that they were in the process of having all of their children that they had frozen.
That's awesome.
Because they got convicted or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, I remember the people I work with, man, they have like 10 kids. It's crazy. I'm like, well, first off, I'm number 4 of 9. It's not too crazy.
So wait, this Christian family who had gone through IVF and had like so many embryos created, they decided that they were just going to have all of them?
They were having them through a surrogate, but yeah, if I got the story right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But I think that points to the responsibility, like I was saying. Like, you have created life. You're responsible for that life.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we have kind of just passed over, like, I really want to have my own child. And again, I have my own children, so I don't know that emotional hurt and that hole in my heart.
Well, that's created in us, right?
For sure,
like, that's how God created us, is to be fruitful and multiply. That's one of the first commands that he gave.
Right.
So it's ingrained in us as human beings to have offspring. And if that's the way God intended it, I can't begrudge people who are unable to have that happen naturally, to have help with that. And to your point, there's a reason why God has allowed us to understand that science,
100%.
right?
Oh yeah.
But like so many other things with science, right? have we taken it too far?
Well, with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
true,
I had
though.
to go
It
there,
is,
but
it
it's
is true. It is true.
Right.
Is it wise? Should we be making the decision to make 10, 20, 30 fertilized eggs and have them stored indefinitely?
Right. And that's kind of where I was going with it, is definitely would not, I would definitely not lean on the side that IVF is wrong, at all.
Absolutely.
I
agree.
would not weigh in there at all.
Yeah.
But most like many other things that we've discussed on this podcast over a year now, there is a line where you can cross it. You can get, I think you were kind of hinting to, like, you can get kind of greedy and say, like, hey, like, I want a child so bad, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And we're not considering the repercussions morally of what we're doing. So what's the solution, right? I mean, as Christians, I think it's important to, one, understand what's happening out there, and two, to have an articulate response to it, right? So I would say this. I think, we were kind of talking before, Tom, a little bit about other parts of the world and how they approach IVF.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up, and I'll let you go into it here in a second, but you brought up that, like, for example, in Europe, a lot of places in Europe don't allow you to fertilize more than one egg at a time.
Right.
That sounds great to me.
Yeah, they'll harvest the
sense.
eggs, and they'll freeze the eggs, right? But they won't actually. They'll try the one. They'll fertilize one, implant that. They'll see if that one is viable and takes, and then if that one's fine, and the one or the couple wants to keep the eggs frozen because they know that those are all viable eggs,
right,
then they're allowed to do that. But they can't fertilize anymore until that couple comes back and says, hey, we want to, that our kid's like, a couple of years old now, we'd like to go through the process again because it worked for us the first time. And so they're allowed to do that. But there are actual laws in place.
Let's say it's illegal.
Yeah. There are actual laws in place in like 5 different countries in Europe where you cannot fertilize more than one egg at a time, and you have to give that one a chance to take before you can go fertilize another one.
Right.
So they leave room for, nature happening. But and I thought that was great. Like, but there are also a lot of countries that don't have those controls in place. One of the articles that I was reading, there are more eggs frozen right now for couples that are done having children. More embryos now that are for couples that are done having children than there are couples that are still having children.
Wow.
And the statistics show, there was a ton of statistics in this one that I found. The 770,000 IVF babies born in 2018 required some 3 million cycles of IVF treatment. And when you look at that, like 2.27 million didn't make it.
Yeah, it's really insane when you think about it. I knew it was out there, right? And I never looked into it and never knew it was concerning to this level. I would have never guessed until we did the research about this episode that it was in the millions, and it was multiple millions. I really think.
Good.
Okay. I really think that as Christians, I think a lot of times we just don't know. We just don't know. We don't know. And when you really start getting down to the foundation of it, if you believe what you believe about conception and the foundations of where life begins, it's shocking. It's really like an unspoken, silent. Just death. It's just.
Well, and the fact that it takes a government entity to get Christians talking about it, right? One of the other statistics in the same article said that since 1998, the number of frozen embryos sitting in storage in the United States has risen from around 100,000 to 1.5 million. And British couples are freezing an average of 100,000 embryos a year. And then Western Australia alone reported 30,000 frozen embryos put into storage in 2022.
Wow.
That's 1.5 million lives just in the, I'm sorry, not worldwide, just in the United States, 1.5 million lives that were created, but will potentially never open their eyes to the world and just sit in storage until,
Till Jesus comes
the expiration date is done, or that, and I mean, you think about it from a clinic perspective. When do you say it's time?
Right.
Like, when do you say, hey, we can't store these anymore? There are a bunch of clinics that are saying that, it costs anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for a monthly storage fee per embryo.
I thought that was for the year, but still, it's a lot of money.
Oh yeah, embryos can be frozen in storage for a monthly fee ranging from $500 to $1,000. Or, this is what I thought was really cool, and this is what most of this article that I found was about. Embryos can be given to another family. So there's this movement that's been started amongst evangelical Christians, where there are now 2 different agencies in the United States, and let me find here. There's Snowflake's Embryo Adoption Program. It's a division of Nightlight Christian Adoptions, so it's part of an adoption agency.
Oh, cool.
But they're called Snowflakes.
That's funny.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they facilitate embryo adoption.
Right.
Like they partner with a fertility clinic,
right,
and then they partner with other families that are like, it's not an adoption so much as it's a transfer. And they say, hey, we're going to transfer our embryo to you. And then they take ownership and have that implanted.
You'd have maybe not ownership, maybe custody would be better, because it's not the parent, the adopted parent's genetic material.
Yeah.
Right. It would be
okay.
So I don't know.
But yeah, and then there's another one called the National
Legal Responsibility.
There's another one called the National Embryo Donation Center, and it marked its 1400th birth from embryo adoption in 2023.
Awesome. Wow.
So maybe we need to start talking about that a little bit as Christians. And I mean, I understand that there's sometimes adoption is because of an
embryo.
The woman, right,
Okay.
is incapable of carrying a child, right? I totally get that. But maybe as Christians, when we start looking at things like being unable to have kids of our own, and I get that there's a lot of different things there with the desire, right? Well, I want my baby to look like me. Well, I want it to be like this, and I want it to be like that. Well, and I get that. I can understand the desire for that. I'm like the rest of the other 2 guys that are sitting here. I've never had to deal with those feelings, and I cannot even imagine what that would be like. But we do know people who have gone through things like that. Yeah. And maybe we need to start having conversations about that kind of consideration. Like, maybe instead of going down an adoption route, we should start talking about maybe looking at, hey, maybe we can go find one of these 1.5 million frozen embryos that are still viable, that have already had the spark of life, right? And go down that road.
Right.
Because the cost involved from this article is so minimal. compared to even like adoption, and it almost runs almost the same amount of from a cost perspective as a round of IVF.
Right. Speaking of round of IVF, you quoted that it took for the 700, it was how many million rounds of IVF?
3 million.
3 million, thank you.
Yep.
Was that, because in the IVF process, like the mom or the woman has to have like a series of medications in order to harvest the eggs.
Yes.
Was that the cycles, or was that was it 3 million attempts at creating an embryo?
So from what I understand, the IVF cycle is the harvesting and fertilization and the implant. Okay. So that means we implanted that 3 million were implanted, right? And then out of those 3 million, only 770,000 actually came full term.
And then I was thinking, of those European countries that you quoted are having these laws where you can only do one at a time. Mm-hmm. This is how my mind works. What did you have a list, or
it didn't have a list?
I would be curious to know what the health insurance setup is in those countries, because I would imagine, this is just me speculating, if they're state run, they're limiting their resources.
Sure.
And healthcare is not a business. In America, healthcare is a business.
What? Stop.
IVF is a business.
Well, yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm in business. I'm in business to make money, and to provide for my family. But I would be curious to see that with the European countries. And I think part of the problem here in America is we have, in our desperation for a child that looks like me, or has my own DNA, coupled with capitalism, we've kind of just let it run loose.
Yeah, no regard for kind of the other side of that coin, the morality of it.
And we haven't even just gone, well, what are the long-term implications of this action? And I had a thought, because you wanted to know, okay, where is the soul, right? Mm-hmm. And I think if we like C.S. Lewis said, I believe it was C.S. Lewis, if we are a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. Mm-hmm. The soul is created at conception, yes? Mm-hmm. And so they've just kind of frozen the body. And we know that be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So, yeah, the soul's just sitting there, kind of like someone in brain death in the ICU on a ventilating machine.
And to that point, right, no brain development has happened. Correct. So the soul, it's not like the soul is cognizant that it's just waiting there. But, I mean, the soul is just as much in storage, waiting to become a fully emotional and conscious part of that body. Right. As much as the body is just in kind of this suspension for all that
time. There's no organ systems. There's no heart. There's nothing.
It's not like a fully grown adult being cryogenically frozen, right? Correct. Like you have all kinds of cognitive things that would have to happen and then have to be reanimated, which is science has yet to do that. But it makes you wonder, right? Like if we're able to freeze, you said 14 years, right? Mm-hmm. Was the longest viable that had come to full term. So if we're able to do that, if we're able to freeze an embryo, a life for 14 years, and then implant it and have a full-term child, well, why wouldn't science, and it's not why wouldn't it, it's already trying to build on top of that technology, right? And what it comes down to is, are we supposed to be playing God like that? Not that we shouldn't help infertile couples, right? But should we as Christians be cognizant and conscious of the same value of life that we talk about when we talk about abortion and things like that? Right. Should we apply that same logic and core morality and conviction that we have to these rounds of IVF? One doctor told a news outlet in 2019 that some patients have 40 to 60 eggs retrieved in a cycle. And then they get orders, the nurse gets orders from the doctor to inseminate all of them. And the last comment that this person made, the question isn't even asked if the patient wants that many inseminated. And then the final thing is, nobody's going to have 30 kids. And they go on to say that we were not prepared for any of this.
Right.
But to your point, it's that capitalism, right?
Right.
Like, because then you can charge for it.
You can charge for it, and then if the one doesn't work, then you have to do all this work and do it again, and
right.
And I mean, I don't know how. I imagine it's quite uncomfortable having eggs harvested and going through all those medications and shots and whatever has to go through to get this accomplished.
Right.
I would say as a Christian, my admonition, if you will, would be to only create what's a responsibility you're willing to take.
That's good. I like the way you said that earlier, and I like the way you said it now. Like, only create what you're willing to be responsible for.
I mean, my wife and I knew that we could only be responsible for 2.
Right.
So,
there are just some other stuff out of this article. There are at least 369 fertility clinics in the United States that have performed donated embryo transfers. I just think it's super cool, man.
yeah.
Like, families are like, instead of I want, right? Couples are making the decision, hey, there are orphaned embryos out there.
Right.
I
have a thought.
We want to take responsibility and be parents to those orphaned embryos.
Yeah. Kind of like Jesus did for you.
Oh. Okay. It's true though,
that was
right?
One of my thoughts was, like, you are no more like Jesus when you love when you love someone else like you love yourself.
Well, and I think there's a lot to that though, because as Christians in progressive sanctification, right, we don't start out looking like Jesus.
Nope.
But he progressively, in the way that he changes our hearts and our desires and our attitudes and the way that we love other people, he progressively changes us into an image that looks more and more like him. And I think when you look at that, when we had mentioned, like, well, I want a child that looks like me.
Sure.
Right? Well, that child may not, in a physical feature aspect, look like you. But at the same time, down the road, there's going to be an adult that no one will ever be able to say, oh no, that's definitely a Plemons kid right there. Right? You know what I mean?
We're all trying to look like Jesus.
We're leaving a mark as if a couple were to decide to adopt, right, one of these orphaned embryos, at some point it's going to be their offspring regardless of what that child looks like, because it's going to have their last name, it's going to have their values, it's going to it's going to share in all of the things that those parents helped make that child.
Right. And it's not going to matter what they look like.
No, it won't.
Right. I mean, your physical appearance obviously has nothing to do with morally you understanding scripture and the gospel. And ultimately, you know, I think it's a great comparison, right? I mean, when you look at these millions of fertilized embryos, I mean, it really is like an orphan populace. It really is. Yeah. And when you have an individual that is aware of that and understands there's a need and feels responsible, I mean, praise God, right? If you're able to do that, and you know, you see the need and you're able to help in that way. But at the end of it, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what Christ did for us.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end of the day, we're all made in his image anyway. At the end of the day, if you can if you can be responsible for that, that's the key word. If you can be, I think it's a great option. And then you can bring that person up.
Yeah.
You can bring that child up, and raise him as your own, but teach him to love the Father. And at the end of time, it doesn't matter what you look like, but that is a embryo and eventually a child and a person that's going to grow up and if done the right way, going to know the Lord and accept salvation, when that's not going to be the case for millions of others. Now, they'll be with the Lord.
Yeah.
But there's a difference there. And I think that's very important. It feels like a great solution to a problem, and whether it's capitalism or greed or whatever that we have overstepped for sure.
It's a cascade of issues, not just it's not one glaring issue that we got to where we got here. It was a cascade of steps.
Right. Well, that's interesting too. You said from 1999 on, right? I don't know the history of IVF all the way, but I would assume it wasn't readily available until about that time anyway. Maybe mid 90s, early 90s, probably.
Yeah.
So, or even if it was early, say 80s. Whatever that time frame was, it wasn't
actually,
always.
I think I do remember
possible.
reading that it was like 1976, but nobody really started addressing, like it wasn't done in excess the way that it's being done now.
So my point is, like, technology, we didn't have the technology to even achieve this until, let's say, the early 70s. As Christians, as humanity, are we going to be having this conversation about freezing the elderly or anyone who wants to be frozen in middle age in 20 years from now, 30, 40 years from now? There are things that are kind of on the fringe of what we think is possible, but we have to understand, the closer, I think this is a good segue, the closer that we get to the Lord returning, to the rapture, the closer we get to that, Scripture makes it clear. It's going to be like the days of Noah.
Yeah.
Things are going to they're not going to get better. Things are going to continue to just kind of nosedive in entropy. It's going to get worse. And, I think you brought it up, if we have to be very careful when we get close to playing God and kind of messing with that image. It's not to be taken lightly. We can point to several times in Scripture where we do, like, as humanity, we've done that.
Yeah.
And God is very swift in his judgment. He doesn't sit idly by when we pervert his image.
Yeah.
The flood. I mean, that was the original sin.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's well, even back to the garden. Right. It was, hey, you can be like God.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the pride of it was the original sin.
Right.
And I mean, from that, the flood, Tower of Babel. I mean, it's always been a fight with our pride, thinking that we can be godlike or be our own God. Nothing has changed.
And I'm all for advancements in medicine. I'm all for, 20 years ago, we didn't have robotic surgery, and now we have minimally invasive robotic surgery that patients go home the same day with very minimal blood loss. Like, absolutely, just surgical, but like advancements in medications and implants, like, I'm all for that. But as Christians, we have a responsibility, like you said, that's God's image. You don't mess with God's image and walk away. Yeah. Maybe walk away, but you will be held responsible.
Yeah, right. You're going to be held accountable for it.
Well, and then, how great is it? Like, we aren't responsible for that. Like, hey, it's not my image to mess with. Right.
Yeah.
Hey, we serve a great God. We are made in His image. It's not my place to tell Him what He's supposed to look like, or that it's not good enough, or that needs to change. It's our place, especially as Christians, but all humanity is to submit to that creation, submit to that image, the true image of Him. Yeah. But how quickly do we turn from that and puff our chest up and say, no, I like my image better.
I will be like the Most High.
I'll be like the Most High.
And I think it's interesting that the conversation has turned this way, because it actually plays directly into some of my concerns with where this could lead. right? What's to stop sometime in the near future from capitalism, greed, saying, hey, come down to embryos or us,
Solid name.
Oh, like CRISPR technology?
and
was
we
hoping
have
we'd get
this
there.
bank of frozen embryos. Pick the nationality that you desire,
Oh, no.
and then we will take that, and then you can decide whether you want, what color hair you want, what color eyes you want.
They're working on
And
it.
then
It's called CRISPR technology.
and then that's so concerning, because that's exactly what we're doing, right? We're not satisfied anymore with our children being born in God's image. We distinctly want to craft our children even down to the way that they look in the image that we want.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I was kind of hoping we'd get there. I didn't know if we naturally would get there, but
It's so creepy to think of.
it is very unsettling. I don't personally know anybody, but I know people who have the income, have the financial resources, because it's quite expensive to do this. Now it is, at least, to be able to do that, right? I mean, they wanted blonde hair, they wanted green eyes, they wanted certain facial structures. And you can get down and you're manipulating DNA. A perfect example. I mean, I can't think of a better example of okay, we've gone too far. There was a line that we crossed where we said, hey, we're going to help couples who physically cannot get pregnant. We're going to hey, God has allowed us to understand the science in this way to benefit us. It was a gift
And a great benefit.
and a great benefit,
100%.
Yeah.
right? I mean, I can't imagine, right? Now, I mean, can you imagine 100 years ago when this was unheard of? Like, you couldn't, if you were sterile, that was it. You're done. Adoption was your only choice. But how great is it? How great of a gift is it from God that we're able to understand the science enough to be able to help in some capacity?
Yeah.
But like everything else, I solely believe that we have taken it too far, and really the extreme of that would be the CRISPR technology, where, to be honest, I don't see any kind of redeeming features or some kind of silver lining. I really do think that's really the far extreme side of it, where you're like, this just feels wrong in its totality, and I can't get on board with it. I really can't, and I really do think it's a perfect example of you stepping into the process and saying, no, God, I got it.
Yeah. Your way just doesn't work for me. Let me tweak it how I want it.
I
Or pay for it to be tweaked how I would
I don't want to have
prefer.
the faith that you got this, that your image is better than what I can formulate in my mind. And the science, unfortunately, is at a point where we can make it a reality.
Man, I just had sorry, like now my brain is going. So we've got these issues now too, where they can do these tests, right, to determine whether or not a child has a gene that will make it, a Down syndrome,
Right.
or
You can
have
test
some kind of
very early for that.
mental
You do genetic
defect,
testing.
right?
Yep.
Or even genetic markers that will lead to like later diseases in life, right? Like these certain markers that you can test for. Wouldn't think about some of these like healthy embryos, right? That are just sitting there frozen. If a person genetically had a predisposition to some kind of, future disease or some kind of, a lot of people have, they're talking about how Alzheimer's and stuff like that is hereditary, and there's some DNA stuff going on there. Well, what if like throughout your entire family, someone in your family has struggled with this, and so you're really cautious about having a child because you don't want to pass this on, right? Well, like what if this was more readily known about,
Sure.
and people knew that this was an option, and they could be like, you know what? I'm going to go do this because these are okay. They come from a family who doesn't have these kind of histories. And then it's not so much them playing God as I don't want to jeopardize a life, but I'm also going to take responsibility for a life that already exists.
Yeah.
For that person to step up, I mean, it's, fortunately, I've never, like you guys have admitted as well, I haven't experienced that. In my family as a greater unit, my parents have experienced miscarriages and things like that, and I remember those instances. I was old enough to be around, and I remember that heartache, and I saw it with my own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
To have somebody go through that, and whether it's adoption in the original sense, or an adoption on an embryo, to step up and say, hey, I feel like this is wrong. There's a need here. I feel like as a Christian, Christ has called me to be fruitful and multiply, or to have some kind of moral responsibility. Like I can do something about this, and feeling called to do that, it takes a very special person.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I respect those people immensely to be able to step up and say, I'm going to stand up for this. This is wrong, and I can do something about it. Because there's a lot of things where, a lot of the issues that we're faced with, in the world, things that we encounter, I think we get not complacent, but one of our first thoughts are like, we can't do anything about it. We're too far gone. I kind of have to just got to kind of wait until the Lord returns. And it'll be better then.
I'm sitting here in my pew and just
I think
wait for Jesus.
We've referred to it before as like bunkering down in your churches or your home, and it's like, hey, there are certainly things that you should stay away from in the world, but there's definitely things where if you're serious enough about it, and if you really feel the need and you feel the calling, if you have the opportunity to make change, there's organizations, there's means, there's churches that you can partner with that have the resources. There's politicians. You yourself can become a politician.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that you can do. So like when I hear about these scenarios, like I didn't know that even existed. I knew that the adoption, that it's a crisis in our country, that there's, in the foster system and that whole thing, it's a mess. I understand that's a need, but I didn't even think about the whole preborn embryo side. I didn't know that was even a thing.
Yeah. Well, when I first started looking into this and found this stuff out, when Crystal and I were talking about it, I'm like, if we were 10 years younger, like this might be a road that I would be willing to go down. You know what I mean? We're not. That's not going to happen. But man, like if I would have known, because the first this article, I'll say that the name of the article is "Frozen Embryos Are the New Orphan Crisis," and it's by Cara Bettis Carvalho. I hope I pronounced that right. But I would just encourage people to look it up. The thing that I love about it is it doesn't condemn IVF, which is not something that we're doing either, but it does call Christians to think about IVF from a very Christian value perspective. That's what I admire about it, and also gives a ton of resources on how you can help or begin a conversation or start getting involved with making people aware that number one, this issue exists, and number two, that there are organizations and Christian organizations that are out there trying to do something about it. I think it's great that here within the last few years that we've seen our government, different portions of our government, step up and start saying things that they said before, right? And then they contradicted, and Christians have continued to say it, and now the government's catching up and saying it again. I think with the abortion ruling here a few years ago, and then with this recently in Alabama, I hope that state governments and stuff start taking a cue from this. And I don't think that's so much difficult to imagine in the Bible Belt, right? I think it would be pretty easy for a bunch of states to get on board with that ruling and to start changing things to make that possible. But at the same time, not to get off topic, but I don't see things in America getting like all that better over years and years of time. But it's nice to see these little wins.
Well, you're never going to change morality by legislation.
No.
And I think morality can be changed by conversations, person-to-person conversations.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
I'm grateful that this is happening. Don't get me wrong. Legislation's changing, and we're recognizing it for what it is. But you can't legislate morality.
Yeah,
you can't legislate behavior. It has to be a personal conviction.
Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about in the last podcast too, right? Is getting out there and being as Christians, being a part of our community and affecting the change that we want to see in the relationships that we build. Yeah,
it's not going to happen by itself.
No.
Yeah, I guess to kind of put some punctuation on it, yeah, definitely don't think IVF is wrong,
right,
in and of itself, but I think that it can be used in a way where there is oversight. There are things that happen, and morally we have to be accountable for those things.
Yeah.
I think Christ has called us to be accountable for those, and it's life. Once it's fertilized, it's a soul, and I think a lot. Like, I'm a very visual person, so when I think of these millions and millions of souls that are originally that were destroyed, and like you said, Andrew, absolutely, to be absent with the body is to be present with the Lord. So as soon as those embryos are destroyed or unfrozen, once that growth stops, that life stops in that embryo, they are in the presence of the Savior, of the Creator.
Right.
And I think hopefully we're allowed to see it, but when we get there, how awesome and awesome, but kind of bittersweet would it be for the Savior to say, hey, see that sea of people over there?
Mm-hmm.
They never took a breath, but they're here.
And they've got my image.
And they're
still valuable.
I had them.
Yeah.
And it's weird because when you say this, I'm trying not to get choked up, but when you say this, you're like, God is, Christ or God is going to say, I'm that good of a God.
Yeah.
And when I say that, when those words leave my mouth, I'm just like, I don't even want to say that because I'm nothing and we're nothing.
Yeah.
But the one person who can truly say, I took care of you before you even had the capability of knowing my name, before you knew who your parents were, before you even had that opportunity to grow and become a birthed human being, I had you in my hand. I took care of you, and you're here. Like, how crazy is it going to be one day to look at all the miscarriages, all the abortions, all the embryos that were discarded and died. I think that's going to be a bigger group of people than we think.
No, for sure.
But
God's good.
The grace of God, that provision, it sets us apart from every other faith system out there.
Yeah.
That hope that we have, I can't imagine where we'd be without it. So I want to leave on a high note. We didn't get to it yet. Andrew sent over an article.
Oh.
And I wanted you to get into it because I think
this was cool.
It was super interesting. I don't want to take any momentum away from it, but I'll let you explain it. But super cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. It was 2016 researchers in this series of IVF research found that there is for lack of a better term, a spark or a bit of bioluminescence. Again, this is microscopic. Like, you're not just seeing this with the naked eye. This is essentially a chemical reaction. However,
still super
at the
cool,
moment of
man.
conception, there is light.
Yeah.
That exists for a certain amount of time, and that helps in the brightness of the light and the duration of light helps like with the viability of the embryo. But I just thought that was cool. It's like, it's light, like you would think if it's fertilization happening in the natural occurrence in a woman's body, and it's just like, that's just them, baby comes out 9 and 10 months later. But no, there's light.
Yeah, God's handiworks all in that process, right? Just like, in the beginning,
I went down the rabbit hole.
God said, "Let there be light."
When you sent that, I started looking into it. I'm like, this is awesome because it has videos of their research where you can see the moment that these eggs get fertilized, they literally there's this, it looks like a spark, like a little firework going off in the background.
Yeah.
And it's undeniable light. And to think that the creator of the universe, when he is first recorded to have spoken in the Bible, let there be light, right? And then you see that happen. It's over and over every time. It's like God is saying over and over again,
right?
Let there be light.
Well,
and
it's
Well, you know what's interesting about that? A little bit of reinforcement is, when we read the first chapter in Genesis, right? It's very detailed. Hey, this day is this. This day is this. The sun and the stars and the stuff in the sky, the heavens, aren't until the second or third day.
Right.
So God said, "Let there be light." Growing up, I always just thought that was the sun. But when you read further on, that wasn't in existence yet.
Right.
It was the pure embodiment, the glory of God. He said, "Let this be known. Let this be perceived, accounted for the first time." And that's exactly the same power we see when life is first created, reproduced. I mean,
I think it's cool that
breathtaking.
no matter how far we get into science, God's right there pointing at, going, "Say, do you see me?
Yeah.
Right. Do you see?" Like Romans, and when we talk about it's in creation, anywhere in the microscopic level. Yeah, God's pointing his finger, going, "I'm right there."
Yeah.
I mean, you can explain. Oh, it's a chemical reaction of zinc and calcium and Well, whatever. Come on.
Yeah, but who designed the chemicals to react like that?
Right.
And God's saying, "Hey, I'm there."
Right.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
And his infinite knowledge to know before we even knew what zinc was,
Right.
that, hey, every single time this happens, the elements that I spoke into existence are going to react this way with each other so that you will see, when you're finally able to see it,
Right.
you will see, to your point, Andrew, there he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's the comparison, right? Like, even at the biggest, most grand example, the first words that we see in our Bible, "Let there be light," and in the most smallest place under a microscope that we couldn't even see a couple hundred years ago, at a microscopic level, I mean,
When the image of God is created yet again.
there he is, at the smallest that we can perceive, and the largest that our mind can even perceive.
Right.
He's there. We certainly serve an amazing God.
Amen. That's for sure.
Well,
I need a mic to drop.
yeah, that does about. Listen, I want to reiterate again that we are in no way. I don't want anybody to take this as a condemnation of IVF. It definitely, as we've talked about many times, God has allowed us to develop that technology for a certain reason, and that's why we have it. That's not saying that God allows us to develop all technology for a certain reason. Some of it is just man, but it's a beautiful thing, and it's helped a lot of couples. We really wanted to have the discussion just so we could be cognizant, maybe help people make more educated decisions, maybe get some conversations going that can save some lives, to be honest with you. If you have a different experience or you have questions about some of the organizations that we have discussed tonight, please feel free to drop us a line. It's podcast@lakeworthbaptist.org. You can hit us up on social media, Instagram or Facebook at LWBC_publications. We would be happy to hear from you. And if we do not have an immediate answer for you, we will do the research and get you one. But we would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Anything else, Andrew, before we go?
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man.
Good having you on,
Thanks
man.
for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks for making
sure.
the time. Short notice. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
All right. Well, hey, we thank everybody for taking the time to listen to the episode. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another installment. Have a great week.